Erik Olofsson, and I'm the creative director of Grinding Gear Games. Can people hear me? Should I? I'll try to speak up as much as possible. But so my background is I've been with the company now for 10.5 years, and starting out, none of us actually had any game development experience. But I'm coming from a concept artist background, you could say, or at least that was my personal interest at the time, and that was a good place to start game production. So Grinding Gear Games was founded in 2016 with just 3 people in the garage, and it's now 100 employees with I think it's 30 in-house artists, and we use some outsourcing as well. So, and we have basically constantly grown and still growing. And Path of Exile, does everyone here kind of, how many people have played Path of Exile here? Okay, most people. Yeah. But it's when starting out, we knew very much what we wanted to do, so it's a very sort of Diablo-like action RPG, which we all were playing at the time. So in a way, we had a kind of clear goal at the start, which helped a lot. And we thought it would take maybe 2 years or something to complete, which was quite ridiculous in hindsight. Yeah, it took like 6 years, 5 or 6 years, depending on what you count as the release until we have a game out. And yeah, we're just releasing expansions every 3 months or so. Well, a small one, and then every 6 months, so a large expansion. And we have branched out to Xbox One recently and launched in China. And I asked for the most impressive number yesterday when I did this talk, and that's 2 million monthly active users. So we with every major release, we're like changing the logo to make things feel fresh, and you can also see you can kind of see like at the very beginning it was a very kind of rough metal look, I guess, and the evolution going to kind of more like clearer and nicer graphical look. We also tried to have the subtitle on each large expansion, which was so it's a bit tricky to try to keep the game logo and get like a secondary like color scheme in to that. And well, we have one mistake here, like the sacrifice of the Val logo there was a bit too vertically high, so it was kind of a problem to use, but then we had already started using it. And so the middle one there, the Awakening, that was 2 years ago, which was at the time a very big expansion, so we wanted like a complete redo almost of the logo, and that was also the first time we could kind of, with a real illustrator, kind of draw out the background shield there that you can see. Otherwise, you can also see a little bit the evolution of our engine with the very first logo. That's just very much Photoshop and textures, and then you get the second one, you get the 3D model and more and more advanced kind of light techniques. But then with the Awakening, it went back to be purely in like painted illustration. And then at the last one, you back to 3D again, and we have like more advanced light happening because it's still rendered in engine. Oh yeah, in this talk, I'll jump between areas very much, back and forth. It might be a good idea to ask questions right away instead of going back, just because I'm jumping between areas so much. So feel free to interrupt if there's any questions. But so this is the very first concept art that was made for the game. It's even made in kind of a chronological order, where the top left one was the very first thing made. So this is the player classes of the game. And it took a long time to do because, well, I wasn't even a real concept artist or illustrator at the time, so there was a lot of learning by doing.
Was this all done by you? All of these?
These images, yes. Yeah. And well, you'll see later when. Well, actually, okay. So this is the very first version of the game, but it's still using the top left image here as the character, and these blocks could move around. So this is taking the characters a bit further, and we had this thing where we knew that the player would be like it's kind of a little bit of an anti-hero, and you're kind of criminals, and but at this time we still we didn't have that much of a story to the game. Like we kind of knew that it would be dark and gritty, and that you would be washed up on the beach somewhere. And already here we had started to do a little bit of New Zealand influences here, with the sort of Islander inspired warrior here. So this just shows the very first, so the duelist player character, and the very first sketch on the left, and then the middle one, which is the one that was used for the first model, and then the third one there, it's part of the, we're actually updating all the player classes now when we have a lot more resources, so it's like a work in progress concept. And that's, yeah, so now we have a lot of really specialized concept artists. The level of the artist has gone up a lot. There's more. Pretty much the final concept for this duelist character. And there's just a quick. It's still a little bit work in progress, but it's showing how we're upgrading our old player classes. And this is kind of a huge thing that will take a lot of people, more than a year probably, to re-rig all the armors and do all that kind of stuff to get it up to full AAA quality. And I think this is the first time this will be shown to someone outside company. Okay, switching gears again completely, going back to the beginning. So this is the very first mood images, you could call them, for the game. And so I said, you would start the game washed up on the beach with absolutely nothing. It's kind of a start out fresh with very little. And some of the game names we had at the very beginning was also Dark Shore was one. Going back to how the game starts, and another one was One with Nothing, which I personally thought was a very cool name, but it was a very, half of people just hated it, didn't really see what it was, and half of people loved it. Oh yeah, and it's quite a lot of the photo bashing and like actual black sand beaches from Auckland. So this is our. It's the first loading screen in the game, and this is also the first kind of concept image or outsourced image that we did. And here was one small pitfall with this image, even though it's good and it served its purpose for many years. When we got it, there was a bit of a bait and switch with the company that made it for us, where they had like one kind of star artist that made their portfolio, and then we got someone else to do the actual image once the price was negotiated and everything. And that was, well, at the time it was kind of a lot of money to us. So this is one of the very early beach images. Not quite up to the you call it the vision yet. So this is our release. This is our announcement trailer. I was incredibly proud of this at the time. Just sitting watching it over and over.
What year was that?
So it's 2012.
September 2011, I think.
All human riches that are exiled from Orient, it is you that stands before me.
The YouTube autoplays.
Yeah, that's the goal.
You say, adversity, agony, anguish, shares.
Oh yeah, sorry, what was the question? What? Did someone else ask a question? No.
Is the process, since you're at this concept here, is the process from going from a 2D image to getting all these 3D models and all these environments and trying to capture the atmosphere and all that mood from that, like, is it quite a process? Because I'm assuming that, you know, you might lay the groundwork into all that with those images and then you go towards the other stuff to have it realized in the 3D. And it's quite a journey.
Yes.
So that,
Well, I will come to it a little bit later, where it's. Yeah, we have a much more proper kind of procedure for it now, while in the beginning it was a lot of just kind of doing stuff and hoping that it would work out in the end. Oh yeah, so this is an updated load screen image that was made, I think it's more than a year ago. But it's like, this is when I had the ability to just go out to ArtStation and like find the perfect artist that has to like completely write the gritty art style for the game. So it's kind of recreating the things in a perfect way, which is an awesome position to be in, because well, we're kind of lucky in a way that it's an online game that is constantly updated rather than like you release something and that's that. Oh yeah, and this is updated look of the very start of the game. And here's an interesting thing here is that you see the cliffs here. That would be like it's actually 3D scanned cliffs from Bethel's beach, and we have well now we actually have graphics like dedicated graphics programmers that can go make the picture look awesome. So I think anyone interested by like 3D scan stuff and rocks, you can go to Saloon's talk later. And you see it how like this is a lot closer to the original vision in a way, but it took 8 years or something for this book, 9 years. And this is just the first town in the game without like it doesn't even have water and super simple light. The light is interface. How it looks now. Okay, now I'll do another big jump. So monsters. One of the things in the game is this kind of soldier faction called Blackguards that were in the third act of the game, and with Act 5 we could kind of go back and expand on that with a full like almost AAA thing. So at first the concepts were quite simple and it's just the front and we kind of send it away to a modeler and kind of hope for the best. Now it's a lot more detailed and like doing the back and everything. And we also nowadays we outsource quite a lot to it's like a Chinese outsourcing studio, which like it puts a bit more demand on the concept because well it's different when you kind of have the time to like send it back and forth a lot with like a single modeler and then have it spread out over a year compared to now when so Act 5 had well it's like just so many monsters and characters so, and that's also we're quite heavy towards concept art in the studio just because well, it keeps the vision in one place, and then you can outsource and kind of expand the production in a way without kind of crazily grow the company. And this is just more awesome concept art, expanding that same theme. So in this case, we could have one concept artist that could work almost only on monsters in the 5th act himself for a year, which, well, the detail and the specialization is just awesome compared to before. And this is like doing a proper kind of illustration for the website background based on these all the monsters that were made for that expansion, and it's all made by the same artist, Shinji. Unfortunately, he left for Weta now. But yeah, that's on the website.
Is there a way to buy the artwork and the concept book?
this talk actually started out as a I just we just put together an art book that is about to be printed now, and this talk started out quite a lot with just content from that book, but then I ended up putting in a lot more actual game screenshots and stuff like that. The name of this talk actually is it's the same name as that art book. I think hopefully that one is only a couple of months away. This image actually shows a bit of a mistake in a way. So the Harbinger supporter packs were very quickly made at the end of the, like just before the release, and it was a mixed reception. I guess players didn't quite feel that cool wearing the armor. Yeah. Okay, another big jump. So this is the first concept for the login screen of the game. And we had this philosophy that from installing the game, like you would only spend a couple of minutes to get into the game, and you would kind of get as much context as possible just from the surroundings rather than having a long intro. And that's partly because like we just couldn't do any cinematics, for example, but also that well, people just want to get quickly into the game. So this shows this is the first version of the login screen. So it shows you the player on the boat basically before you get washed out on the beach. This is a slightly better version that shows better versions. And once you log in, you get down to this cargo hold where you choose a character by like they step up into the light, and it's the same like ship thing. This is inspired by. Do we have many concept artists here? No. Well, this image is very much inspired by this pirate image by Craig Mullins. How it actually ended up in the game. And we also have so the idea is that the player is a prisoner that gets transported out and thrown out off to this continent. So they have a prison guard walking around in the background talking, for example. But unfortunately, people kind of thought that it was a shipwreck rather than you being thrown off. But it's something that we plan to fix. So with the fifth act, we wanted to do redo the intro, like the login sequence completely, and make it very iconic. So we're actually taking it a step farther back in the history, where you get your sentence as a player, and then with the fifth act, you basically close the loop, so the player gets to go back and take revenge on the people that exiled you. So this is what it ended up with, and it's also using that gigantic statue as a sort of very iconic face in the expansion, and it also comes back later. This is how it ended up. Side by side, like this has. The modern one has a lot better use of like silhouettes and contrast compared to the old one. It's still the same player models though, so I'm very keen to get this scene updated with the once we get the remade player models. Oh yeah, and also the statue in the background comes back as this boss in the game. yeah, we also have this this X shape. It's a very, it's kind of the symbol of the fifth expansion, which it was kind of cool to work that in a very planned way for a couple of years even. So the X symbol in the face. And I just threw this concept in because it's kind of awesome. Done by Jason Hong. Yeah, so this is just showing that symbol and how it comes back in the logo. And a lot of symbols in the game and in the actual boss as well. And it's all, of course, like that statue in the very, very start of the game, and then it comes full circle to fight it. Okay, there's just one of the trailers. One of the very modern trailers, just to show the difference compared to the first one.
Still alive, are we? Don't know how long that'll last. The
Mind if I kill the lights? It's a little hard to see.
Sorry?
Do you mind if I turn off the lights? It's a little hard
of
to
course.
see. Do I have?
Nope.
Do you have a light switch next to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Raycast old, land of ghosts and gods. It's waking up. These gods, they live forever. We mortals, we only get one chance.
Okay. Yeah, that's that went a bit faster than planned. So time for questions.
Have you got anything interesting to tell us about the particle effects? They all look pretty interesting. Is there a cool process behind designing them?
Oh yeah, so it took a very long time before we got even the first fireball into the game. And, well, it's kind of cool since I was there at the very start. Like I got to do things like that, where like with extremely crude tools, but now it's completely different now, and well, everything I did in those early days are of course replaced now.
Do they kind of go through the same concept art process as all the actual reading stuff?
Not as much, only a little bit, but well, effects you can. Like it's hard to concept in the same way just because it's a lot about motion and impact. But with effects, it's we have quite a few effect artists now, and that's like one of the areas where we like there's just there's just never enough effect artists for us, at least. So there's, in a way, there's only so far you can go with like models and like making them awesome. But with effects, that seems to me like the thing that would take, like, that will make it actually good at the end. And there's like endless variations and alternate spell effects and things that could be doing. So yeah, specializing in effects, that is probably, I can imagine that would be, you get good job prospects then.
Which was the most challenging character to put in the game?
Character?
Yeah.
Well, I would assume like some of the complicated bosses. Yeah, I don't really have any particular one that I experienced as super bad. I'm sure maybe the like animators or riggers would have some better answer there. Yeah, I don't know. So this super large boss that we made in Act 5, that was certainly a challenge in the way that it was like we didn't actually know if it would work, both when it came to gameplay and like visibility, how the fight would work. So I guess that would be, at least recently, that was the most challenging one, I think.
How big the concept team was? Is it well past that?
I think it's six concept artists.
Yeah, it's really awesome seeing the iteration process that the team can do across the course of the project. How were you able to balance the amount of resources spent on iteration versus production budget limitations, and how did you come to find that balance between pushing the extent of game graphics versus deadlines?
Well, first of all, we're lucky in the way that it's like, given it's more of an online service and we can patch things in afterwards, then that certainly helps, because we can, as long as something doesn't completely break gameplay, then we can do a kind of get it as good as possible before release approach. But I don't know, I don't think I have any like perfect formula or something there. It's, yeah, now when we are a lot more people, we can actually iterate more, I guess, while especially at the beginning we just had to kind of go what this happened to look like. But that depends, like, do you have any specific area the question is?
Yeah, I guess like what have you found most rewarding in terms of pushing certain aspects of the game forward over other things, and seeing like a positive reaction from fans?
I'm not, well, I think it's like the reactions can be in many fields. You have like, if you don't get any reaction from players, it's a very good thing. That was actually the case with Act 5, in a way that even though it was the biggest release ever, we had like the smallest amount of like data feedback and just in general less criticism, I guess. yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive. I guess certain fields are more like that than others, like sound effects or animation probably are like that, where people want to mention it when there's something bad. So,
Camera.
yeah,
You ever heard someone say that's a great camera who isn't a developer?
it's like camera and lighting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wondering about, so this one, the dark gritty style, was that a response to how Skittles like colorful Diablo 3 was? Because when Diablo 3 came out and then you guys came out with your beta, the internet was like, oh my god, this is the real Diablo 3. This is good, everyone jump on this.
Yeah.
And was it, yeah.
So we had the dark and gritty thing right from the start. Just it's probably the personal thing, I guess. But it was also like, kind of recapturing that Diablo 1 and 2 atmosphere, just because that at the time it was just kind of the most amazing game experiences that we have had. So then you try to go for that. Well, it's probably quite a personal thing. But in a way, it was very lucky that that we got our own niche here.
Yeah.
So yeah, not exactly because we were clever. It's just lucky. Yeah, because we had already done it for a couple of years before that came out. Yeah.
As a counterpoint to that previous question, a lot of the mechanics in the game right now are very heavily color-coded. Like, for example, this most recent challenge league, the Harbinger League, has been entirely blue.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan for when you run out of single colors to use? Because I know you do it to reduce clutter. It kind of gets uniform after a while.
Well, with the colors like that, like we generally pick a color for each like league and expansion, and I guess it's just generally keeping it all together, so you get like news posts being that color and like it's recognizable in game, and you have certain mechanics. And so some leagues where like the Parandos League, like you can find objects that are kind of the same color and use them with this other character that's kind of a similar color. So it's just kind of keeping it together with features to make it more understandable. Is that what the question was about, or like more like the planning about it, or?
So currently you have the Harbinger monsters, which are blue.
Yeah.
You also have Lunaris monsters in like the later acts, which are mostly blue. And you have magic mobs, which are also kind of blue.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, we will probably avoid doing a league that has blue monsters in that same way, just because of this. So, yeah. I can't really say that much more about that. It wasn't exactly perfectly executed in that particular case.
Is there anything that since the company has gotten larger, you miss being able to do yourself?
Oh yeah, I can't. Well, yeah, I just don't have time to sit and draw stuff anymore. So that, yes, that's yeah, that's a bit of a shame. But on the other hand, it's very satisfying to see what we can do now, because it's just so many talented, specialized people. Like the end result is just so amazing. So I guess it's the satisfaction of actually doing something yourself is kind of replaced by that satisfaction.
I guess having amazing people do it for you.
Yeah.